This class, let's see what exactly a regression analysis is. Before go to this concept of regression analysis as a part of machine learning, I would like to say there are frequent terms which comes in our subject. The first one is the dependent variable is. What is the meaning of dependent variable is? The main factor in the regression analysis which we want to predict or understand is called the dependent variable. And sometimes we used to call the dependent variable as target variable. Whatever you want to predict, the value of a particular variable can be referred as a dependent variable is. For example, the variables which depend on other variables are factors. We expect these variables to change when the independent variables upon whom they depend are undergo a change. So they are presumed effect. For example, let us say you want to test tomorrow. Then your test score is dependent upon the amount of time you studied. So the test score is a different variable and the amount of time you have spent is an independent variable. And what is the independent variable is? Which allows us to identify the value of dependent variable. The factors which affect the dependent variables are which are used to predict the values of the dependent variable or can be referred as independent variables, also called as predictors. The variables that are not affected by the other variables are called independent variables. Example, age of a person, every day it comes, is independent. Two persons born on the same date will have same age irrespective of how they live. We presume that while independent variables are stable and cannot be manipulated by some other variables, they might cause a change in other variables. The most common symbol for the input is X and the most common symbol for the output is Y. All independent variables can be referred as X1, X2, X3 and so on. And the dependent variable can be referred as the symbol for that is Y. So Y is equal to f of X. There is one more term comes called outliers. Is an observation which contains either very low value or very high value in comparison to other observed values. And outliers may hamper the results, so it should be avoided. The observations have been taken into considerations to identify the dependent variable, and sometimes the value whatever you have taken is less than the value or might be more than that. The variations, suppose example, the variations between one variable other variables are very high, and here now the second and third one is very less. So the first one is the variation, first to second one is very high, so first one you should discard, you can discard it. That is referred as outliers, and outliers may hamper the results, so it should be avoided. The next one is multicollinearity. If the independent variables are highly correlated with each other than other variables, then such a condition is called multicollinearity. It should not be present in the data set because it creates a problem while ranking the most affecting variables. There are two fittings comes picture, underfitting and overfitting. If our algorithm work well with the training data set but not well with the test data set, can be referred as overfitting. And if our algorithm doesn't perform well even with the training data set, can be referred as underfitting. Now we start the topic of regression analysis in machine learning is. It is a statistical method to model the relationship between the target as well as predictors, dependent variable and independent variables with one or more independent variables. So one dependent variable, and we can take more than one as the independent variables. For example, what you have is called the person studied, how many marks we can get, the knowledge, how much do you have, as well as how much time you have spent for studying is also important for us. So independent variables might exist more than one, but dependent variable is one. So that's why y is equal to f of x. F of x can be x1, x2, x3, and so on. More specifically, regression analysis help us to understand how the value of the dependent variable changing corresponding to independent variable. Another independent variables are held fixed. It predicts continuous or real values such as example temperature, age of a person, salary, as the price, as well as inflation, and so on. We can understand the concept of regression analysis. Some example have been given. You can see advertisement and sales. How much time, how much money they have spent for advertisement, and what the sales are happening. Whenever they're spending more amount, the sales are increasing. Example, $90 spent and the sales are $1,000. For $120, it is $1,300. $150, $1,800. So whenever they're spending more, the sales are increasing, right? So here now called sales are dependent on the advertisement. Sales is a dependent variable, advertisement is independent variables. There is impact is there of sales based on the advertisement. Using this particular table, it is possible for us to know that. Same thing said, $2,000 in the year 2000 and wants to know prediction about sales next year for this year. So solve this type of prediction problems, machine learning, we need regression analysis. So regression is a supervised learning technique which helps us in finding the correlation between variables and enables us to predict the continuous output variable based on the one or more predictor variables. Mainly use prediction, forecasting, time series, modeling, and determine the causal effect relationship between variables are, which we are going to see in the coming classes about all these type of the predictions are possible. Of course, supervised learning techniques we are going to use to do the analysis of all this type of the relationship between the two variables. In regression, we plot a graph between the variables which best fits the given data points, which I said in the previous presentation about how do you display values using the graphs. So in the Python, we have matplotlib is available. The link have been provided in the comment box. Just go and have a see how do you plot a graph using the Python. The regression shows a line or a curve that passes through all the data points on the target predictor graph in such a way that vertical distance between the data points and regression line is minimum. The distance between data points and the line tells us whether the model has captured a strong relationship or not. The graph allows us to know that how much impact is coming out. A linear relationship or a non-linear relationship are possible to know it using this one. Some of the examples of regression can be a prediction of rain using temperature and other factors, determining market trends, prediction of road accidents due to rash driving. So in next class, we'll see some more topics about this supervised learning algorithms.